company today is a product that makes it easy to collect more submissions, more leads, more activity on your website, and do something kind of useful with that, convert them into business or convert them into paying donors or increasing alumni data capture. Along the way, I've actually done a number of things. I studied finance, but then was in the financial world, was in investor relations for a company for a time. Actually, then even went with my family overseas for a couple of years to do mission work, and then have been back in the software world for about 4 years now. When my family and I decided to move, we moved to London, and we left kind of our cushy American lifestyle of, house and dog and 2.6 kids or whatever. We only have 2 kids, but for statistical purposes. And so we had all these things that were very normal American lifestyle kind of things, and felt like we needed to go do something a bit different. And so we actually sold everything we had and left our jobs and went to work kind of in missions for a few years. And that was tough for a number of reasons, because you've got, no matter how compelling an argument you make, everybody kind of looks on you as that's really strange, and you're leaving everything behind, and what if you can't find a job when you come back, and what are you going to do for money? And yet, for us, we just felt a strong conviction that that's what we needed to do, and that has helped us make tough decisions along the way. And I think it applies to take even work. We've had team members before that over time we've learned they don't have our values, or they really don't fit our culture. And for a time, that's okay. You kind of say, all right, we'll work with them, see if we can help them along, find the right place. And yet the conviction, ultimately, kind of at the end of the day, the conviction that, and we're trying to build something that works for a larger group of people, and we can't be about any one individual, but we have to be about the team. That conviction forces you to make tough decisions, like saying, hey, you know what, you're not going to work out here. Help them try to move on and find a better place to work. But kind of conviction in the purpose of something, and working for a greater purpose than just I want money or whatever it happens to be, has made a huge difference in making the tough decisions at least more bearable to get through. Our toughest challenges, I think personally it's things like, how do we raise our kids to, in the ideal world, how do we raise them to do all the things we want them to do and succeed in the way that we think they should succeed? And yet, probably the better question is, how do we help them just make smarter decisions, make wiser decisions as they grow up, and go the path that kind of has been built out for them. In work, it's actually very similar. We want to encourage people to put their best in, to find their best fit in the organization, and yet as an organization, we want to push forward in an aggressive way, and we want to grow, we want to build new products. And so it's trying to figure out the navigation between telling people what to do and forcing them to do something, and versus encouraging them, leading them, inspiring them to do something great. And that's a really tough challenge. You'll listen to leadership podcasts and read books and speakers all day, and they'll talk to you about leadership, and they make it sound really easy to a certain degree, or that they've got it down, and yet helping people find their way in a positive way, in an encouraging way, in a constructive way, is really, really difficult. And so I think the daily challenges are redefining the objectives, redefining priorities, helping communicate those to a team, and not pushing that too far, and just being a master and telling them, hey, this is what you're going to do, and you've got to get it done, because ultimately that's not going to build the right people. So that's probably the biggest challenge as our organization grows, is how do we foster that, and how do we help develop leaders that can teach other people to do that? Because as we grow, one person can't be that teacher, be the person doing it. It needs to be multiple people who can teach multiple people how to do the same thing, and how to how to encourage their team members. Tough organizational challenges that seem to be broad these days are really defining, as an organization, any organization, where are you going, how are you going to get there, and how do you communicate that to everybody. It's easy as a leader to have all of that in your head, and you're like, I know where we're going, I know what we're doing, but if you can't communicate that to others, get them on board, get them excited, then they're never going to get there with you. I think that challenge is for all time has been a problem for people. How do I get other people to understand what I'd like to see happen, and how do I do it in a positive way? The other organizational challenge that I think is probably going to play out over a longer period of time is I live in the tech world, and it's often a very, very young, kind of aggressive group of people. And at some point, I think that group of people has not matured to the level that they need to. There will be some maturing that they need to do, and yet I'm not sure how that's going to take place. And we need leaders to say, oh, wow, not only do I need to lead an organization and grow it, but how do I help mature young people into leaders, and leaders that will give back, leaders that will be productive kind of members of society. That sounds really vague and chintzy, but I mean, point being, they're not just going to take for themselves, but they're going to produce something that solves real world problems and helps people, even if it's the wealth that they create, that they help solve those problems with. Our kind of transition to remote happened over a long period of time. We were a completely office-based environment all of our lives for our first 6 years. And my wife had an opportunity to take a job back in Oklahoma, where I'm from. We've lived a couple of times, but we, again, had initially been that fully office-based environment in Indianapolis. And I kind of said, all right, this is, I can try this. We're a web-based environment. We've always had the ability to go work at Starbucks or wherever it happens to be. I can somehow make this work. And so over time, I began to experience working remotely, which really meant me traveling back and forth quite a bit, but I did work at home or in an office in Oklahoma quite a bit. And then the transition started a little bit before me. We hired a developer in Poland, and then, and funny enough, I always tell people, while he's a great guy, that was the toughest way you could ever start remote, is hiring someone from a different culture and a wildly different time zone. You've already got challenges just going remote, but then further cultural challenges that may come up, and then time zone issues is like you're trying the hardest thing first. And I don't necessarily encourage that. But over time, we had someone move to San Francisco, and then someone moved to Chicago, and ultimately we just said, all right, let's just open the door to remote. And at this point, we've got about 30-40% of the team that live outside of Indianapolis. And then even the people who live in Indianapolis only go into the office 1 to 2 days a week on average, or maybe 2 to 3 days a week. And so I think the interesting challenges for us is there are remote companies that are very, let's say, software development oriented, and they'll hire people who probably could work in a closet all day and would be totally fine with that. There are personality types that are fine not seeing someone every day. We've always hired people that are fairly relational. We're a very relational company. I'm very relational. And so that was the biggest challenge that we wanted to overcome, is how do you let people go remote but know that, hey, they're not going to have this team around them all the time. How do we help them connect relationally? And so we'll do things like we make sure we always have a Tuesday meeting where the entire company is there, so you at least see faces, encourage a lot of video communication. We try to get together multiple times a year, and definitely get the entire company together once a year. But the other kind of challenge or interesting thing that's come up for us is I thought productivity might be a problem when people were remote. Like, will they get things done? Can we trust them to get things done? And over time, we began to change our attitude and say, okay, let's just assume that they're getting their job done. And we realized the trust issue was really our own issue, not the other person's. It was just we need to kind of give them trust, and maybe they can kind of earn our distrust in a way. Like if they can't accomplish the task over and over again, then maybe we need to question what's going on. But to the productivity issue, it's really what we've found is people are much more productive when they're remote. They get a lot more done. The issue is more that they have a tough time pulling back from their computer and stopping and doing the things they need to do at home. They often feel a little bit more tied down to their computer. When you're in the office, you don't mind getting up and going to the water cooler or playing ping pong or whatever because you see other people doing it. When you work remotely, you're like, this is the only way people know that I'm alive, is if I'm sitting behind my computer chatting with them or whatever. And so it kind of can sometimes almost be that, yeah, you're more productive, but you also get drained relationally. The two things we've kind of spent a lot of time talking about are remote and then what is really mission, vision, and kind of your values. For us, we call those, it's our why statement, why do we exist? Our manifesto is somewhat equivalent to kind of values, and then future facts are our vision. So where are we headed? What is kind of the future going to look like? When I went remote, I realized that we had not defined those things very well, and it made communication very challenging. People had a hard time understanding what is it we're doing, what are we trying to accomplish. And so I spent about 18 months with our leadership team and others really trying to define where is it we're going, why are we going there, what are we trying to accomplish, and we wrote that down into something we now call, how we refer to as our playbook. And so it has all these things written down. It's in a kind of a keynote presentation or a PowerPoint presentation, so everybody can run through it or use it when they need to. But that tied together really well with remote for us, because as we were able to document that and put it on paper, it meant that we could communicate to a team member who was far-flung and rarely got into our office what we were about and why we did it in a certain way. And that's been extremely valuable. One thing I'd share, though, with that is it literally took me years to get to that point where I could actually write it down. I was always kind of like, yeah, vision, mission, blah, blah. I don't know what I can do with that. I'm challenged to write those things down. And there's two lessons I learned there. One is use a group of people. I sat in, kind of in my own brain and cycled around on these things for months, and finally brought a group of people together and got it done in like a day, at least a version of it. And so using a team to come up with that is really helpful, because your team knows, you may not have articulated it, but your team kind of knows why you do things the way you do, how you do them, and they can help solidify that. The second lesson for me is it's a living document. So we specifically put it into a PowerPoint presentation so that we could manipulate it over time. As we write down our values, we thought we knew what we meant at the time, and then as we say it out loud over and over and over again, we were like, that's not the right way to say it, or it doesn't convey the message quite like we wanted to. And so like right now we're rewording and reworking one of our kind of manifesto items just to help people better understand what we're thinking. And over time, you may even want to chop one of them out or something like that. So letting that be a living document. And I said I had two things, but a third thing really is you've got to communicate that stuff over and over and over again, and in different formats and different ways. So we try to reinforce that on a monthly basis, sometimes in written format, sometimes in live format. We tried to share examples of why we've written down. For instance, one of our manifesto items is that we will plan for and commit to big targets, like we will make big goals. Well, we try to say that verbally. We try to get other people to repeat that for us, and what do they hear when they see that statement? Try to do videos around it, and so you cannot over-communicate that type of thing. Most of us as leaders think, oh, I communicated this once, everybody should get it. And yet the reality is you need to communicate it, I think they say 7 times before the message will really get across. And so those are some kind of lessons we've learned and are learning new every day.
Au revoir.